Yeah.
Just a few housekeeping things before Kave and Elizabeth get started. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the chat. You can raise your hand and we will call on you as those questions come up and then ask you to unmute yourself.
Okay. Should we start, Elizabeth?
Sure, I'll be happy to.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Halpin. I am Vice Dean of Continuing Ed and Professional Services at Seton Hall University. I also teach leadership development in the Buccino Leadership Institute. I am a co-sponsor of this webinar and on behalf of Seton Hall, but I'm also a recent student of the RESERO coaching program through AJO Associates. So I wanted to start off to tell you that we're at Seton Hall, we're very excited about a potential partnership with the RESERO program and AJO Associates to bring coaching education to Seton Hall University in our continuing ed division with the Buccino Leadership Institute. We have been, as a leadership institute, we've been offering our undergraduate students professional coaching for the last 6 years, 6, 7 years. And we feel it's a really, really valuable asset to our students. So we have started thinking about bringing coaching to Seton Hall in a more robust way. And so I and my partner and fellow teacher, Barbara Callahan, decided to pilot this RESERO program last year, and we learned so much from the program and felt like it was such a wonderful addition to Seton Hall and aligned so well with our Catholic mission that we hope that we can do great things with AJO through the RESERO program. So it's my pleasure to introduce Kave Nafisi, who is the instructor of the RESERO program, who I know many of you on the call might know also from other programs that he has started at Rutgers and other places. So Kave is quite well known in the coaching sphere and is a fantastic instructor. I really learned so much from him and would consider him now not only a great coach and mentor, but also a friend. So Kave, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It always brings such a warmth to my heart when I see so many of you that as you know, it's a very powerful experience what we go through, and to see you online, it always makes my day. So as Elizabeth mentioned, this isn't my first rodeo. We've done this in several other schools, but I took a break of about 2 years between the Rutgers and this one because I felt there were elements that, as good as those programs were, that I really wanted to hone in on. We're going to go through some of that when we go through the explanation, but in particular, we did a lot of work on the presence, the coach's presence, and also what fundamentally is the philosophy of the person going through this, not only to become a great coach, but what in them is it that gets amplified and connects with the whole idea of coaching, so that that comes across when they're actually coaching someone else. So we'll go through that when we get to our presence piece, especially. One of the things that we really try to work on in this program is to shift your mindset from one of expectations, performance, regret, second guessing, all of that, to what I call as the joy of learning and development and growth, which is a fundamentally different mindset than the first. With that, we work a lot on this very important, this is covered in presence, idea of seeing people first and foremost from the inside out and not their outer packaging, which is so fundamental in when you coach another person. It makes no difference if what their gender is, what their race is, what their title is, what their outer appearance looks like, and that takes some time. Very few programs spend that much time on those types of concepts that are fundamentally so important to coaching. So I would the idea being that as you work on this, as you find that reflective time in your lives, that you actually will make much better decisions than when you're on a treadmill, just running and trying to be everything to everyone and trying to be the best at everything. That we try to get you that space where you really get connected to yourself and to the other person, after which they come out as your client and you come out as a person, making much better decisions, grounded, balanced decisions about some very important topics. So this is sort of what we have. This is a very mini version, obviously, of what we're actually presenting in the program. But we thought we take some of the concepts like learning and unlearning, presence, which I think is so important, active listening, powerful questions, giving and receiving feedback, and so forth. And just rather than doing it conceptually, because so much of this is experiential, is to actually have you journey with us as we go through this, as if you're in class. You go to the next slide. So thinking about learning and unlearning. Next slide, Jill, please. So it is no one's fault that they're conditioned. Basically, you meaning everybody on this call and everybody else, have been living a life, you've had experiences, and that's conditioned your brain into neural pathways that are connected through these things called the synapse, which automatically get triggered with various things out there in the world. And so you immediately go there. And so what happens is that when new context, when new situations come up, you don't have the flexibility, what they call neuroplasticity, to be able to regulate yourself. So, for example, when you're going from a corporate player to a coach, that fundamentally requires a rewiring of your brain. And that's what the unlearning here is talking about, is we don't misunderstand the meaning, we don't wrongly catalog, we don't inaccurately assess, we don't go right to solve and fix, which are things that many of you have been programmed in your other lives exactly to do. We're trying to change you in this program to be something other than what you've been programmed for most of your career to do. So you go to the next slide, Jill, please. So there's a woman named Carol Dweck. Many of you know her. She's done extensive research on what a learning mindset versus a fixed mindset is. She used her own personal background as a way to get incented because she was in a household where very academic, very left brain. She measured her own sense of self-worth through that. And she, for example, had a very hard time with peer-reviewed papers, which is fundamental in academics. She took it personally, and she got curious as to why her reaction is in that way to those types of learning opportunities. So she came up with a construct. If we go to the next slide, where, so this is the dichotomy of when you're making a journey from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, of what the differences are. So what I'm going to ask you to do, we're not going to cover it right now, but just in your own mind, if you can think of an area where you are in a fixed mindset right now, in right now as we're speaking, and maybe another one where you're more of a growth mindset. I'll give you an example. There are many people that still carry the fixed mindset that you have to pay your dues before you're allowed into various types of opportunities or levels in organizations and so forth. And that obviously is being challenged quite a bit in today's world with what's going on. So, what would that be for you if you're thinking about an area where you're in a fixed mindset, whereas there might be another area where you be very much in a growth mindset? This is a fundamental question when you walk into this class. We had many people that think they're already coaches and they're just doing this for getting a certification, and others who are completely open saying, no, 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 this is a whole new thing. Let me be open about this. So you can see where the areas are that being tested, whether it's challenges, obstacles, criticism, and others people's success and so forth. Okay, going on to the next slide. So what do we do? Well, we first have to really get to hear that fixed mindset. One of the things I do myself, if people hear me, they think I'm crazy. I actually talk loud to myself a lot. And when people hear me, they think there's something off, but that's a way to test it. It's like, who's speaking? Who's got the microphone? There you go again. You're just saying this again. When are you going to learn? Okay, so that is you're just broadcasting that fixed mindset. And then recognizing that that's just one of you that's speaking. You could be giving the microphone to someone else in you that doesn't get a chance to speak. So that's the choice. Talking back to it, like I do when I speak loud, is a very good technique. Well, yes, I understand there was a time in my life where you were really helpful when you told me that. But now, look, now I'm a coach now, and you keep telling me to fix it for this person, and you're so anxious when they don't say the right thing, and that kind of thing. And then really then taking on and practicing that growth mindset, which we do a lot in the program. This is one of the reasons we meet in person, is we call each other stuff as it's happening. There you go, you did it again. Until you clearly see the distinction with where you're open and where you're closed. On to the next slide. So for me, can you go one slide back, Jill? Okay. So for me, I differ a little bit with the ICF. Obviously, you're going to get ICF certified. You're going to get all of that. But I differ philosophically, and I don't think this is just a competency. I think this is the foundation. If you want to be a great coach, you must personify a presence that would result in the other, being your client, for example, inviting you into those conversations they're only having with themselves. So let's think about what kind of presence will incent someone to invite you into those conversations that they're only having with themselves. So this is much more of thinking about an acting studio than reading books. This has to happen live in person with other people. It's a dance with other people where you progressively get a better measure of what your coaching presence is, not your other presences, but what is it like to be experienced by you as a coach. So going on to the next slide, one of the techniques is there is a big I in the language of Eckhart Tolle, which is your observer, your true self, your soul, whatever. Soul sometimes freaks people out because they think we're talking religion. We're not. We're talking about that one that's in you, that's watching you, that's always going to be with you, no matter how age you are, how old you are. Okay, that one from the balcony observing. And then there's your little me's, which are your performers. So if you think about your day, you have 4 or 5 scenes. My performer as a team leader, my performer as a mom, my performer as presenting to the shareholders. All those are your little performer selves in the day-to-day world that we live in. And what we want to do in coaching is we want to spend a lot of time in the big I as you're coaching another person, the big I category. Okay, going on to the next slide. So I'm going to ask you, now those of you taking the class is a bit of a repeat, but if you have, let's say your chatter voice, the one that keeps interrupting and weighing in like, oh, you got to fix this guy's problem and taking too long. I know where they're going and all of that. Um, let's say you have one of those and let's call it whoever you want to call it that fits for you, but you're taking that chatterbox part of you to your bucket list vacation with you and they're traveling with you. If you can just close your eyes for a second and imagine that they're with you. What are some of the things that they're whispering in your ear and coming in with as you're trying to get into this vacation, as you're trying to get to the essence of, if you like horticulture, you're in a beautiful, herbal garden, or if you're into scenery, you're watching the Grand Canyon or whatever, but your chatter voice is there with you. What are some of the things that they're whispering, and how is that affecting your experience? So we're going to pause, let you for a few seconds to think about that, and if you can raise your hand, we're going to recognize you with you coming in and sharing with us what your little me's are whispering in your ears. Any courageous souls that want to volunteer?
We have a couple.
Okay,
Nick was first.
okay. If you want to,
I'm going
Nick,
to allow Nick to talk.
Nick, yeah,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Nick.
It's nice to be on the call with everybody. It's a pleasure. Um, my inner voice, my guy's named Gus. He punched me in the face in college. And so there's very little reason to pay attention or listen to him because he mostly gets it wrong. And I always find it interesting to be able to have that conversation with somebody as a third party because it's interesting. Our minds, right, will play games with us and they'll take us down the opposite direction. But if you talk it through, I find that when I talk it through with that inner voice or that assigned name, I'm able to I'm able to work through a problem much more effectively than if I just let the rumination happen because it's just on repeat
Right. So
otherwise.
what is Gus telling you on this vacation? Where are you on your vacation?
And you mean in this moment of time?
No, no, I mean your dream vacation. Where would it be, and what is Gus whisper? What is a chatter?
Oh, sure. So I'm headed to the Amalfi Coast. Haven't been there yet. Been to Italy a few times, but not to Amalfi.
Okay.
And
Just to project. So let's forecast. What would Gus might say in the Amalfi? I love that region. What would they say?
yeah, I mean, first off, he wouldn't want me to go on the trip. He'd say, you shouldn't be taking time away from work or friends or family.
Yes,
You're going to miss out on other experiences, right?
exactly, exactly. So imagine if you're coaching and Gus is weighing in, what that does to your listening, what that does to your presence. And imagine if you're a coachee and you just can't separate and witness yourself away from Gus. So that's the that's our point here. Anybody else? Thank you, Nick. That was very helpful. Anybody
Yeah, of
else?
course.
Anybody else that has one more maybe on a vacation? And go ahead if you could put yourself off the mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm on vacation in Venice,
Oh, oh.
And I'm walking next to Nellie, who is my little me. And it's very interesting because she's telling me the whole time I shouldn't have spent that much money on this vacation. And I could have been more practical with my money, and I don't deserve it. And
Uh,
it's very, very interesting because I don't think I'm that way with other people. So I don't know why Nellie is doing this to me.
yeah,
So,
that's
so,
a fam-
so go figure that one.
that's a very familiar one. That that financial. We work a lot of people where they're trying to go for a job that they would really like, but that financial insecurity one. Ugh, that's a big one. Yeah. So we work with a lot. We work with that one a lot in class. Is a lot of people have that one. Just that shrink wrap around you, that financial stuff. You know, Wonderful. So that you get a sense of what this element of that presence part of the program is how am I experiencing myself and how am I being experienced by the other who I'm coaching. Okay, if we can move forward, only because of time, we have to unfortunately move a little faster. Okay, so active listening is a fundamental skill. There's a guy named Gottman, Gottman, who's done all this research on marriage and why it fails, 90% accuracy. The number one independent variable is am I being heard or am I being listened to? So, uh, in coaching, by the time we're finished, you are going to be the absolute sponge, where you minimize your presence as much as possible through very short questions. You get out of the way so that you can absorb the other person with all of you. And by that, what we're talking about is if we could just fast forward to Jill to the 4 levels of listening. Okay. So a lot of listening that you're going to experience in your day-to-day life, and especially in the world that we live in, is just getting accelerated, faster, more dynamic, and interruptive, and all of that is the focus on self. Selfies, here I am doing this, here I am doing that. It's about the self-absorption. The second one, which is better, is at least you can summarize what someone else is saying, factually. You can say, oh, so what I heard you say is this, is that, which is much better because it actually validates the other person. Where we want, that's not good enough if you're coaching someone else because there's a lot of research, including one at MIT, that says only about 17 to 20% of the impact of your communication is based on your words or what you say. The rest is all about what is sensed, particularly from the emotional and nonverbal sides of you, that the coach would have to pick up on, amplify, notice, play back so that we can spend time in there. Even if you don't have the words, we're going to stay in there and play with it until we get a sense of what that is. If you cannot do that, you're going to be a mediocre coach. Why? Because what people think is factual many, many times have an emotional underpinning to it, right? So why does this person always has to talk in the meeting and takes all the airtime? Well, it might be because he has or she has a need for love or recognition that hasn't been fulfilled. And we need to get that one out. We need to look at it. We need to talk about it. We need to play with it. And then there's one that you get to, if you get very, very good at this, which is, and, oh, that's true. And what is the context that's surrounding that person right now? Are they having big layoffs in their organization? Did they just come back from a vacation? Did they come back from an overseas trip where they didn't get much sleep? What is the context of that conversation? So we spend time on all, especially level 3 and 4, to clearly distinguish this for you and make sure that you spend time in 3 and 4. Good place to stop, see if there's any questions. I don't want you to be overloaded and overwhelmed. Any questions so far around some of what we're talking about? Is it clear? It sounds like,
No, I don't see any questions in the chat, and I don't see any hands raised.
okay, so that sounds
Ka-
like it's self-explanatory.
Kaveh, I've been thinking about this a lot this last week as we've been, listening to the, back and forth over Charlie Kirk and his legacy, and how, it seems like a lot of people feel that as long as two people are in a room and both get the opportunity to speak, that there's dialogue. But I think it misses the idea of listening. Are they actually listening to one another? In our political debate, are we listening to each other, or are we just talking at each other? And what's the difference? And so I've been really doing a lot of thinking about the 4 levels of listening and how important that is to actual political conversation, that there be actual listening and not just trying to win an argument.
Right. That's such a great example because it has an emotional component. Um, and so in coaching, the challenge is ratcheted up even one level. That irrespective of what your personal belief is, you have to be a blank slate. Why? Because your job is to have this person witness themselves, come up with their own way of deciding where that energy is for movement, how that's important to them, and whether they're going to take the time and the resources to actually shift. So
Absolutely.
if you weigh in with, yeah, but did you consider that? And what about this and all of that? That's not coaching. It could be a good debate technique, productive debating. But in coaching, we actually ratchet this up even one higher level of challenge. It looks like somebody has a question.
Denise.
Denise Josephat.
Denise, go ahead.
Yes, it's not a question, it's a comment to add to the conversation to build on it. And I think especially, I mean, I've had clients with, yeah, I'm typically not coaching them on their political, we're not getting into that, but sometimes they do mention it, and sometimes it's completely opposite of what my thinking is
Yeah.
politics-wise. And I think it's not only in what we say, it's our body language. We really have to be careful, our facial expressions, our body language, and not to let on we think differently, or we think, or we're judging them for their thoughts and behaviors. So I think part of this listening is also listening with our body and making sure we're keeping it in check.
Very good.
Good point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very good. There's only, been one time where I dismissed myself, and this was a very big moral, I think I shared with you, some of you in class. I was coaching a clear racist, and there were two sides to me. One, it affected my listening and presence. The other is I'm completely into the human potential movement. I never think anybody's too old or to work on themselves and to progress. But in this particular case, in the time that I was in, I actually dismissed myself as a coach, and that is a choice in coaching where your listening and presence gets affected because of your personal values and personal beliefs. It's much better to take yourself out than to try to pretend that it's not affecting your presence. Okay.
I have one other hand raised, Kaveh.
Okay.
Let me just pull up. It is Betsy Worley. I hope I pronounced that properly, Betsy.
Yes, close enough. Hi, everybody. So my question is, how do I know? So I'm listening for emotional and nonverbal cues, and I believe I have an insight. What's next? I mean, is it to say, as I'm hearing you describe the situation, here's what I think I'm sort of, I think you're feeling X, and you seem stressed, you seem upset. In other words, is the next step for me to articulate what think I'm hearing,
Yes.
and then have the person either validate or say, well, that's not really, now that you mention it, no, that's not what I'm feeling.
Yes, that's absolutely a part of it. Very good for picking that up. Noticing and labeling and naming, noticing is a big part of it. Notice you're not making an assessment. You just say, what I'm seeing is this. Is that right? But also, what you really want to find out through the person, not you telling them, is you want them to start seeing that there's many of them in them. And you want them to see which one has the microphone, which one is in play, which one is the one that says that. And are there other, we call this in class, we have a technique called perspective coaching where we start thinking about what are some of the other perspective, what are some of the other thems if they were given a chance. And what would that perspective look like? Doesn't mean they're going to jump to it, but what you're doing is just introducing other possibilities through them, their choice. And over time, if you keep working with them, if there's enough reason for them to shift, they will start to listen more carefully or at least balance out the conversation so that one person doesn't have, or one of them doesn't sabotage and take over the conversation all the time. I'm writing a book, and I use this technique in the book. It's a dinner conversation, dinner table with a hostess being the person being coached. And around the table sit all of their inner voices. And one of them is sitting on their left, screaming in their ear, jumping up and down while nobody else is being heard. So, as a good hostess, your job is to introduce the various voices to each other and have a much more balanced conversation. And at the same time, you're in the balcony watching this dinner table, and you hosting it, so that you're constantly separating and witnessing. You're separating and witnessing. Okay, great conversation on that one. Let's just go to the next. So I want to make sure that you guys have time for interactive, especially we have a wonderful panel of students. So notice the emphasis on powerful, not just any question, but powerful questions is another very important part of what we teach. So if we go to, I think it's slide 19. Yeah. So as you look at this progression of less to more powerful, the distinguisher is spaciousness. And by that, I mean, how much room is there for the respondent, in this case, your coachee, to be able to elaborate, to be able to talk, to be able to show nonverbals, to be able to show emotion, so that you as a sponge sitting there can actually pick up a lot more information. If your questions are binary or very kind of transactional, you're going to get surface level question. And at the level of listening of the second level of factual listening, that's fine. However, what you want to do is make a very short question that's spacious and sit back and observe. Not exert yourself, sit back and observe. And those questions usually are the how, what, and the why. Now, the why we say sometimes because if you don't do it right, it comes across as judgmental, which actually shuts them down rather than open them up in terms of what you're able to observe. So, so what do we mean by that? If we keep going, Jill, please. So, the closed questions are basically limiting, very specific. These are great for technical topics. Not so great when it comes to emotions, behaviors, understanding human beings, which are so nuanced and there's so many parts to them, and they're always evolving. And I always I always get a chuckle of the fight of the ego. So, you were really close to someone 20 years ago, 10 years ago. This thing happened. Remember that thing that happened? And you just stopped talking to them. And they're 10, 15 years later, you're a different person, they're a different person. You still can't pick up the phone to call them and say, hey, can we talk about that? It basically is limiting when the ego sets in. What we want to do is rather than promoting blame and defensiveness, we want to make sure that we're opening up new possibilities for the person. And sometimes the why questions bring up the blame. Whose fault was it? And that kind of thing, which is not going to be helpful. Okay, next one. So the other big distinction is, they might agree with you during the coaching session. They might say, great, I got the insight now. But it's very different to have it sustainable and they carry it out forever. That it becomes part of who they are. And this is where a lot of great coaching falls. The coach disappears, and 3 months later, the person's right back to what they were doing. Why? Because you haven't built and amplified that sustainable energy in them. So the more open-ended questions allow you to get to the root of what's going on, so that if you attack the root, there's probably a better chance that they will be able to then sustain it. I'll give you an example. I have those of you in class know this. I've built a Zen garden behind my house. Once a quarter, my coachees have an option of coming and spending extended time in the Zen garden where they take off their corporate uniform and they could be very relaxed and we talk. This guy that's in the digital advertising world, as you know, is growing very quickly, had been telling me all about it. This other guy that, is incompetent, that he doesn't like, that everything was his fault and all of this. So we got going, and after a while, he said, you know what? I do want this to be productive, and I have to tell you, everything I've told you so far, you can put on one side. What's really going on is he's younger. He knows the space better than me. He knows the technology better than me. I feel threatened. That's the root. Not all the corporate mumbo jumbo that he was telling me. Not all of those other. That's the root. Got up, shook his hand. We started working on that. That's where that sustainable energy is. In order for you to get there, you have to have that right presence. You have to have that level of listening. You have to have those powerful questions. Okay. So here are some examples of what some powerful questions are. You notice that they could go anywhere they want with this. It's going to come from them. Your job is to observe as they're answering this. What's the onset? What's their body doing? Where's the energy flow? What's the tone? Um, and you can ask questions, other questions like one I love is instead of you being the expert all the time, you say, "Hey, so Elizabeth, from where we are in this program, in this where we are right now, what's a really great question to ask you right now? Where did you put the accountability now? Is it with the coach? Where's the accountability?
It's
With
on
the client."
me.
Yeah. And they will tell you what that great question is. Another great one for sustainability is what are you learning about yourself? And what are you learning about yourself vis-a-vis other people and other situations? What's happening to them is often a choice. It's not about it. It's about the reaction to it. Elizabeth had a very powerful, I'm not going to go into what it is, it's private, but she had one that she decided that it was a choice. She, from what I understand, has reframed and has had a different outcome.
I'd be happy to share that if that would be helpful to the
Absolutely.
conversation. So while we were in our class together, I was sharing difficulty I was having with my relationship with my brother, and how I felt like his choices were preventing us from having the relationship that I had enjoyed with him before he, became more closed off to certain ways that we had been communicating with each other, ways that we had been connecting with each other. And through the course of the coaching that I was receiving from Kaveh and the group, I realized that I was closed off to the possibility that there could be other ways for us to connect, and that I was choosing to stay in that closed mindset of like, this is how our relationship has to go. And so after reframing that and realizing that I could make the choice to change the way that we connect and make it so that I could connect better with him in ways that he would also be open to, we have had a much better relationship, and really not much has changed about our relationship except that my mindset is different when I approach him, and it has been made our relationship so much better.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing a little bit. Nothing like actually going through the cases. So you're going to get in a class, you're going to get in a community. There's going to be an atmosphere where you're not going to feel at all strange about sharing this stuff with each other. I know it's hard to believe, but most people that have gone through the program, they will tell you there is a fundamental difference between day one in terms of how they feel about sharing and last day. And a lot of the power comes from being open. Okay, moving on. Okay, so where does feedback come in anyway in in the program? And what's the relevance? Well, number one is as a coach, you will have to do some interviews of feedback that you heard about the person, and you need to share that with them, and then assess whether they're open and willing to work on those perspectives, not who's right or wrong or what's fair or unfair, because you never win that as a coach. You're not there in their organization, but whether they're willing to work on a perspective that perspective itself might become reality. So how do you provide that feedback and what's the reaction to it? Secondly, you're going to be giving and receiving feedback about your coaching in class. So these concepts that we're going to cover have direct relevance to the experience. Going on to the next slide, there are four aspects to that delivering and receiving feedback. There's the framing of the feedback. How do I frame it? So you just jump into feedback. You frame it. So, and one of the I think interesting frames is, and I asked this in the class, is for example, if you're going to photography class, cooking class, horticulture class, and the instructors gives you some advice and feedback and stuff, what's your reaction? And what is it when you receive it in a corporate setting, the word feedback? What's the association you place on each? Often people say, well, and those other things, I welcome it. That's why I joined. That's why I paid the money. But this one, well, the frame is that the word feedback is loaded in a corporate setting with consequence management, promotion, salary increase, recognition, whereas you don't have that in the other settings. So the framing of the feedback is very important. So you're going to give, is that developmental? Is it really developmental? Do you believe it's developmental? That sort of thing. And then there's barriers to receiving feedback. We're going to cover that, how you deliver it, and then how you practice it. So when you give and receive feedback, just another frame you have, there are three levels. The number one, the worst one is I'm giving you feedback, you're resisting, rationalizing, defensive, no learning. Second one, really good. Thank you. I'm going to act on that. I'm going to really try to use it productively. But the third one, which only less than 5% of the population practice, which is a true sign of the growth mindset, is that you're a feedback seeker. Not just when it's offered, but you're a seeker of feedback. So you say, well, you told me it was 90% good. I want to know the 10%. What's the 10%? We want you to be at that level as a coach. Because it might be in that 10% where that incredible thing actually exposes itself. There was a mayor in New York City called Ed Koch. Remember him? He was just walking around all the time saying, how am I doing? How am I doing? We want you to be saying, how am I doing? So there's the appreciative feedback. There's the coaching feedback, which we're going to spend a lot of time on. And then there's the evaluative feedback. Each one has how to deliver it best components. I'm not going to go through all of it. It's all there. But it's important to understand when you enter a feedback conversation with someone, make it clear contextually, which one are you in? Which one is it? Okay. Triggers is what gets you going, right? And this is really important when you have a reaction to see which one of these is really setting you off. Is it a true trigger? I'm going to refute that. That's not me. That's not who I am. Is it a relationship trigger? You see that in Washington, D.C., where if it's the other side that said it, 100% of us are going to oppose that if the other side said it. If we said it, 100% of us are going to agree with that. That's what's called a relationship trigger. I just can't hear it from you. Even though in this particular case, you actually may be right. We want to really test for that in you as a coach and in your coachee. And then the identity triggers, which how is that affecting my sense of self-worth if I'm listening to this? Okay. So if you really think about how you let's just go back to the last one, Jill, again. Think about for a second whether you want to share it or not. When you had feedback that was given to you that didn't land and you didn't accept it or you didn't feel right about it, which one of these it landed in? And going to the next slide, Uh, when it did work, how were these used? So we do that in class. We say, okay, think about feedback, and then we pair them off. When did it not go well, whether you were giving or receiving it, and which one of these triggers was it? And then when it did go well, how did it relate to this? Okay. I accelerated because I wanted so much for you guys to have time and have but let's just stop there from a content point of view. Oh, there's one other slide on content. If we just go to what coaching is and isn't, Jill, I think it's the next slide. Yeah, so this is the official.
This
Uh,
one?
yeah, so this one. This is routinely confused about what coaching is and these other things. We spend quite a bit of time with this. Let me give you a real world example of how this is played out. It's like the blind leading the blind. The stage gatekeepers of coaching practices, people that hire coaches, are often not coaches themselves or been trained or certified in coaching. They're usually from HR, they're usually in leadership development, and someone said, you take coaching too, and you vet the coaching. You vet the coaches. So one of the fundamental mistakes is they profile the coach to resemble the coachee's outwardly outward world profile. So have you had experience in entertainment? Do you have a PhD in psychology? Are you a man or a woman? Are you black or white? Because this person really wants this. Okay. And the second question after all the mumbo jumbo that a good coach asks is, what is the impact of all of that on you? How does that affect you as a person? That's the arena we're working on. Yes, you got to be smart enough to get your head around the abbreviations and what that company does and all that just because of, but if you start becoming an expert and take a position, business positions on what they're saying, you lost your coaching space. You're no longer objective. It's your point of view. And you built a false affinity with them. Oh, of course, the men are always like that. I get you, sister. Let's talk. Or a man. Oh yeah, they're always complaining. You know, it's pretty. You're wise to have chosen me. So what you're doing is basically you're getting it much more out of the realm of what we call as the witnessing. You're helping them witness and self-discovery and making progress into an expert model where because you have an affinity with them, you now put your head together to go against that other side or to, divide the world in half. The reality is when you come out, you're going to have to deal with everyone. You're going to have to be effective in a setting that includes a lot of different types of people. And again, like Elizabeth said, it's your choice about that stimuli, not the stimuli yourself. It's how you react to it. I was in a setting where Melinda Gates was going to come and speak. I love Melinda Gates. Before the talk, everybody was talking about her divorce, how much money she has, what happened with Bill, all this. The minute she started talking about her work in Africa, guess what? No one was thinking that stuff. No one. That's how we want you to be as a coach. Your presence and what it draws out of them and how that gets them to go to the next level. Okay, that's the end of the content. Just very quickly, if there's questions about the content, and then I'm really looking forward to having the panel and the interactive conversation. I think there's one question. Betsy, how do I know if I'm successfully listening for emotional and nonverbal cues? Is the next step to describe what I think I'm hearing and ask for comfort? I think you might have asked, somebody asked this. Absolutely. Uh, what we want you to do is to honor your intuition in coaching. The book that's coming out that I'm writing goes, if you think it's airy fairy intuition, you're going to be blown away by the research on it. It's a biological function of your body. If you sense something, you want to say, listen, I might not, might be anything under this, but I just sense this. Just put it out there and not have your ego get injured if they say, no, that wasn't it. That's fine. You're not saying it is. You're saying, hey, I'm just going to put it out there and see what you think. So that's a great technique. The other thing, Betsy, I would say when you're looking for listening for emotional and nonverbal cues is to really see if you're noticing any kind of a shift in their presence, even if it's subtle, or the words that they might use. Like I use this in class. Someone say, that wasn't my Sunday best. Not being Christian, I had no idea what that meant. And you don't want to assume you know what that means. You want them to get in there and come out with all the emotions of what it did, what it means for them when they put on their Sunday best. We use that metaphor then later for every other thing. How close is that to your Sunday best? Is it like 2/3 to the Sunday best or halfway to Sunday best? So that in itself became a construct. Okay, over to you, Elizabeth and Jill. Let's get our wonderful panel involved.
Yep. And what you see on the screen too is just the program structure for RESERO, what it looks like in its current format. This is also available online, so I don't want anybody to be concerned about writing every single thing down or worrying about taking pictures. You can download the model structure on our website. Okay. And I know that we have a couple of panelists on the call that we asked to be prepared. And I'm just going to go right down the list. So if there's anything that you want to share, Mary Lou, if you want to unmute and share some of your thoughts about going through the RESERO program.
Yeah, those of you that feel okay about it, maybe you could put your camera too. I'd love to see you guys. So,
We can't.
And if I
Oh, there we are. Yes.
see, you can put your camera on, Sandy.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
if you want to say something, you can raise your hand and we'll definitely call on you because we want everybody, if you have an experience or something that you want to share, or if there was something that kind of touched you when Kaveh was running through the program, we would love for you to even mention it or ask a question about it. So Mary Lou, if you want to get us started off on your experience, we would appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure how to put my camera on, so I'll just speak.
okay.
We'll picture you. We'll picture you.
Okay. I don't have an option for that. I have an audio option, but not a video option on my screen. So, but thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about this coaching program. Just a very quick background. Before attending RESERO, I had been coaching a few people pro bono to actually pilot an approach to change that I use in organizations and to see how it would work for personal change. And it was then that I realized that coaching, the experience of coaching other people was one of the most fulfilling things I'd ever done. And even though I coached my team in the past, this felt different, right? And so I had learned about the RESERO program from a former manager, a former boss of mine, and I jumped at the chance to hone my skills at being a better coach. And more than anything, it just felt like a calling. I started to learn that this was something that I was put on this earth to be doing. So if I was going to do that, I wanted to be the best coach I could be. So when I learned more about the program, the couple of things that you spoke about a few minutes ago, Kaveh, that really resonated with me was the amount of in-person engagement, because so much has been virtual lately over the last couple of years, and the opportunity to learn from leaders who are the leaders in coaching. They are the best out there. And so for me, after I had the interview with you, Kaveh, and I learned more about the program, it sounded so unique to me and so experiential that I thought I just had to jump into this. It was also a bonus that Christina DePaula was co-facilitating, and she was the boss who introduced me to this. So I really, there's so much about the program that has been so impactful for me, and I would love some of the other panelists to talk about that too. But more than anything, I learned how to be the best coach I could be. And my experience from when I was coaching pro bono before the program to now is exponentially different. I mean, it's just a completely different experience. I have so much more present. I'm so much more in the moment. Those powerful questions that we learn with each other through the experience of peer coaching multiple times during the course of the program was beautiful, because you don't always get the opportunity to experience what it's like to be coached when you're learning how to coach. And so you know what good coaching looks like, and that's what I aspire to always be.
By the way, it's unfortunate that Christina was engaged. She has such a big part in making this what it is, and you know, I look forward to doing it with her many times again.
Yeah, it was great as well.
Thank you so much, Mary Lou. And Linda Green, I know you wanted to talk about a few things that happened post-graduation, the impact it had on you post-graduation.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I actually graduated with a master's degree in communication from Seton Hall, and I really enjoyed that program, and I always wanted to use my communication background, and it came in very handy in my experience as a trainer and an IT salesperson. I always liked the idea of coaching and wanted to learn more about it. And when the opportunity came up to take the RESERO course, I was really excited. And it was interesting because it really taught me what coaching was. And I had the wrong impression at first. So it gave me such a great background into learning more about people. Um, Mary Lou said a lot of what the same thing that I experienced. I love the hands-on, the experiential, the community in our cohort. Everything was great. And then I was able to actually afterwards land a coaching job in communication coaching. So I was able to pull together my communication master's from Seton Hall with the coaching experience, and I'm now a communication coach as well as a career coach. And it really added a different dimension to how I would have been if I hadn't taken this course, because people ask me for communication tips. Oh, how can I be better at this or that? But I always go into the powerful questioning and try to observe and be present and find out, well, what's really going on for them? So I'm not just reading a list of do this, try that. And I think it lands much better because I did learn in class that if the solution comes from the person rather than from me, it will be more sustainable.
Yeah. You know, thank you, Linda. You know, it sounds so simple, but I mean, if the way to really internalize this is put yourself on the other side of the table around some behavioral change or some meaningful change that you're trying to make, and see what methodology is going to work for you. Is it one where they tell you and they tell you how they do it? Or is it one where that internal struggle that's going in you has to find peace and common ground and a way to make it real for you? It's very difficult to use some. There's only, you know, the way I describe this in class, there's only one of you wired exactly like you in the entire universe. So judgmental statements about others and relative statements about others is by definition false because they're wired differently than you.
Yeah, exactly. I just always thought that everybody would feel the same way, you know, and that is definitely not the case. And taking the RESERO course definitely made me a much more effective coach.
Thank you.
I really liked in the course how actually I was thinking about this last night because we were teaching a class on optimizing performance. And I was thinking about how you had that image of the ladder of, what leads you to your perspective, all of the different, conditioning that you've had as you go along. So that's a helpful tool, I think, visual.
Yeah.
Okay. And Sandy Parks, if you want to, I know you were looking forward to making some comments as well about your experience.
Yes, Jill. Thanks, Jill. I like Mary Lou. I have the option for audio, not video. So it's great seeing you, Kaveh.
Thank you.
Um,
It's
so
great to hear from you again.
yeah, we'll have to catch up soon. So let me just quickly explain. So I am not an active coach in terms of the true sense of the words, similar to what Mary Lou was talking about she's doing now. I actually have been a human resource professional for about 20 years, and I'm a proud Seton Hall alum from their Masters of HR Management program years ago. So love Seton Hall. My daughter's actually looking at the law school currently. Well, with that said, I am currently in-house working in the biotech field, and the RESERO program was, and I don't mean to sound trite, life-changing, both professionally and personally. Kaveh hit on a few things that I really engaged and have kept going. Presence, it's a word, and it doesn't really mean the same thing after being at the RESERO program. Being present means you're putting all that chatter behind and really being there with the person in front of you, whether it's at work or at home. And the change when you're really there is palpable. I think not only for you, but for the person you're engaging with. The other part of what RESERO brought for me is the realization that I don't need to be everything all at once, and I can make my own path to get there. So I've decided one of the things that means the world to me in all of my roles in human resources, but specifically as a business partner and leading a function is leadership, right? Any organization, at the heart of it is the people, and the people leading the people are critical. So this program has, the RESERO program, when I exponentially impacted my leadership, not only capability, but my ability to help my colleagues in leadership roles really move the needle for themselves and their teams. And that presence is important. You go in with these preconceived notions, and it's almost like a natural fallback. And through RESERO, I learned to kind of cut that out and move forward, really being in the moment with the person I was with. And I just want to say that on a personal note, the program, the growth that I experienced through support of both Kaveh and Christina, the AJ folks, thank you. The honest talk and feedback from folks like Mary Lou that was part of my cohort. And honestly, at the end of the day, my own self-realization of what was in my way and how to move it. So I hope that if this moves forward, I hope to see this in action in the classroom as well. It's something that certainly makes a ton of sense to me. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. By the way, English sometimes is limiting. It's a great practical language, but when it comes to some of the subjects we're talking about, so presence has two connotations, both used in class. One is what Sandy just referred to, which is how you're being experienced. What is your presence? But it's also about being here and now and in the present moment, which is fundamental to great coaching and to the person being coached, in the sense that if you're not there with them exactly at that second, either thinking about what happened in what they said or what's going to happen, you're going to miss some very, very important nonverbals and things that are going to be key to creating that shift. The reality is that what happened is hallucination, that moment is gone. Nothing you can do. You just wasted. Once you get the learning out of it, is wasted energy. And if you project onto the future, this is my view, if you project onto the future from the present, oh, this is what's going to happen if I go to that cocktail party, it's going to be awful, and so and so is going to be there, and all of that. You actually take current energy and you project it onto something that hasn't happened. And so what you do is you close some doors that might be opening for you if you stepped in it in the moment. I had a friend that lost his job, very distraught, and another one that had the perfect job for him. So I connected the two of them. Afterwards, I called my friend that had the job and I said, "What happened?" He said, he reminds me of these guys that just got divorced and they go on a new date and they just keep talking about the old wife. Until he gets present, I can't do much. So we spend a lot of time on getting Yankee. We have a morning meditation, we have morning quiet time, all kinds of things to yank you away and out of that and putting you square into that space.
Yeah, Kaveh, it's Mary Lou. Can I jump on that for a moment? There's two pieces of what you just said were really, really resonated with me. One is that earlier you talked about listening and observing and just sort of paying attention, really focusing in a coaching arrangement to what your coachee is saying. And there have been multiple times now that I'm tuned into that through this program where I've heard someone say a word like, "Well, I didn't really care about that," or "I didn't really care about that." And you call them out on it because you've heard it now a couple of times and it changed the course of the conversation because the person didn't even know they didn't even understand for themselves what they were saying, but that
Right.
talk was derailing the problem she was trying to solve. So
Yeah.
that was one piece of that, being fully present and just really honing in on those things that people are self-sabotaging and they don't even realize it. And the other piece about it is, and you just mentioned it, is like this program is really quite different. It's intentionally different. And you have to kind of go into it trusting the process and really fully committing to enjoying the experience as the experience goes. It might feel very different. Well, it's supposed to feel very different because most people are not listened to anymore. Most people don't have anyone they can really talk to and feel safe
Yeah.
engaging with. And Sandy, you had mentioned this earlier. I mean, we had such a great opportunity to be in the same cohort together. And the self-discovery that I went through was absolutely mind-boggling for myself. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that, but I got that through the peer coaching and I got that through the feedback and just through experiencing something very different. And if you're going to want to be coaching people in a way that really helps them, you need to change how you operate. I mean, I had to change a lot of things about how I listen. And for me, one of the most challenging things for me is to drop the question and stop talking. That's something I learned about myself, is that I don't give enough space, enough silent time to stay in the moment. And that was a huge learning for me. And it's helped me in my personal life tremendously as well.
Yeah. Your ability to listen to the words that they're saying and not be satisfied, be curious, is absolutely critical. So I give you two examples, one from corporate and one from just parenting. So, I do this team coaching too. And one of the things that came back about the team diagnostic that I gave them was that the issue of exhaustion. So they were all ready to work on exhaustion, being not, just being tired of all the work and everything. So I said, well, wait a minute, before we go there, what do we actually mean? What's under that word? Well, it turned out that it could have been bad strategic planning or inconsistent strategic planning by senior management. It could be a bad decision-making process. It could have been the prioritization process was not really great. It could be that they don't have enough people. It could be that the people that they have aren't skilled and not the right talent. So the nuances made all the difference in the world.
Mm.
And when a child says, "What's that?" you have a choice to say, "That's a leaf." and that's the end of the conversation. Or you could say they call it a leaf. You see the distinction? When you say they call it a leaf, then you have the opportunity to actually talk about photosynthesis, which is what you're really trying to describe is what's the essence, what's the life under that word, not the label. The problem today in our world, especially, is that we're satisfied with the label. We quickly want to think we understand what the person said. That's what they said. So here's the answer, and we're going to move on. And that often is not, especially when we have different cultures, different ethnicities, different types of profiles, is not what they meant.
Okay. And we also have Denise Yosefat, one of our other alumni that I know is ready to share today.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi Kaveh, and thank you again for inviting me as well. And Mary Lou, you were a great segue into what I wanted to share, which is I came to this program, I came to RESERO in a rather unique way because I already had my PCC. I already went through another program, full blown, and I came with that growth mindset of what else can I learn? And it blew me out of the water in terms of what else could I learn because here I am walking in with the PCC already thinking, there's not much more. Um, my other training, which was good for what it was. It introduced things like toolkits. So here are the questions to ask when the individual's having trouble managing up. Here are the questions to ask when for conflict management. And what I found myself as a coach is, oh, look, I have this great little cheat sheet. And that may be okay for ACC level. That may be okay for preliminary beginner coaching. It wasn't okay for the kind of coach I wanted to become. And I think RESERO really helped me jettison my coaching into a whole new level. And so, having that experience of going through what another coaching program was like, thinking, oh yeah, end all, done all, and then going through RESERO, really, the intentionality that you spoke of, that everybody is speaking of being present, of not necessarily having all these questions, hey, I have to ask this next and this next, being present. And it's almost like when I told my kids, you go to college not to learn something specific, you go to college to learn how to learn and to learn how to be a critical thinker. And I think with RESERO, it's the same thing. You go to RESERO to learn how to think differently as a coach. And that's what it accomplished for me. And I think that's why, my clients get so much more out of me now, I think, than they used to when I first started coaching.
Yeah, thank. And we have several other certified coaches that decided that, especially because we put so much emphasis on presence, that even if you think you have all the tools and everything, why not go into a setting where your presence is tested and improved on or worked on so that it's not just what you think, it's what other people tell you how they're experiencing you. So it's been a real privilege to have you and others, Denise, that came in with that background and it helped the other students in the class as well.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And again, I learned, they may have learned from me. I learned from everyone in that class.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was great.
I'm just wondering, Jill, is Annie on the call or no?
If she is, she might, there's somebody that is A350864. I'm not sure if that's her
'Cause I know she
or if
wanted
that's somebody else.
I know she wanted to say a couple of things, but I'm not sure if she's
She might have had to run.
okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. So just a couple of things. One is that I'm actually going to be there in New Jersey on the 20 Jill, help me out with this, 23rd and 24th. No,
Let's take a
24th.
look.
Sorry, the 24th and the 25th of September.
Yes, the 24th and the 25th.
Yeah, if any of you are wanting to get more information, want to meet, have specific questions, I'm going to be at the AJO offices. We can make time. There are breaks, there's lunches and so forth, and I'll be happy to meet with you. The other is that if you know someone who's seriously considering, there's also a referral fee for you for referring him to the program.
Yes, there is. And if you have any questions or comments about that, you can email me directly, or you can email the info@ajoconnor.com. It's on the slide that's up. And I also put the emails for AJ O'Connor and Seton Hall in the chat. So you can, any follow-up questions that you have, any interest or whatever it might be, please feel free to email us because we're here to answer all your questions. And if it's something that Elizabeth would know more, I'll get Elizabeth involved and she would do the same. So, you know, we're all on the same team as far as this presentation is concerned.
We'll send out a follow-up email to everyone who participated. We made a recording today for those, you know, who had to jump early or things like that. And we're going to send out a short survey to get some information from you about, you know, why you might be interested in participating or participated today and what you might be interested in the future.
Yeah, and this, you know, this could also be played for those that weren't even on the call. If they want to hear segments of it, it's recorded. If you say, hey, you might want to listen to this, maybe not all of it, parts of it, you know, it's all there.
Okay. Are there any other final comments or questions or anything that we didn't cover that you may want to ask Kaveh while we have him here?
I want to close with after we see if there's any questions, with a thought for you guys to think about. Let's see if there's any comments.
Just Nick said, thanks for investing the time.
Thank you. So I don't know how many of you have or watched the show Severance on Apple TV. Those of you that have know that this is about a show where, and those of you who haven't, I'll tell you a quick synopsis. It's about people that have consciously decided to sever their work life and their personal life through a brain operation where they literally don't remember when they're in one arena or the other what the other one is like or what it is. And the ones that are the innies, the ones that are just at work, and I've left the other part out, feel there's something missing. They don't know what it is, but they know they're not whole. And the show is really about what they did to conspire, strategize, whatever, to get back their whole self, to become a whole person. It won all kinds of Emmys and so forth. In a way, that's our journey in this program. We want to get you back to the whole person that you are, not your choreographed, performance-related person that when they go into semi-retirement or retirement doesn't know what to do with themselves, or the one that is crying their eyes off when they're empty nested because they don't know what to do with themselves. We want you to become a whole person. And as a result, a much better coach. Okay, well, with that, I really want to thank everybody that participated, Jill, Elizabeth, everybody that put this together, and looking forward to hopefully having some of you in the programs and really building this into what it could be, which is there aren't that many programs that aren't being mass customized, that are Zoom or, you know, distant or where they don't get into this level of depth. I think we have a unique offering, and I'm hoping that we can sustain it and get it out there.
We're really excited. Thank you so much, Kaveh. It's always a pleasure to hear from you.
Thank you so much for everybody.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
You.